Welcome back, everybody. Spotlight time again. UK reggae style. UK roots. Today looking at the band called Capital Letters out of Wolverhampton, UK. UK Skanking, feels good. But it never match up to the JA style. UK Skanking in a higher ranking. Jamaican people have a special way to rock and sway in a Jamaican way. Song commenting directly on the differences between reggae created in Jamaica, the homeland of reggae, and that created in Great Britain as either first or second generation immigrants of Jamaican descent, and the different road they had to travel to express a connection to their culture, and by extension back to the ultimate homeland of Africa as kind of displaced persons twice over, having been their ancestors brought to Jamaica from Africa and then having been transplanted again to the UK, to a very different climate, very different social environment, and the different influences that entailed. And reggae was always going to come out a little bit different, created in Britain, than that which originated from Jamaica. I'm going to be looking at a series of UK reggae bands from the 1970s as roots reggae proliferated across the length and breadth of the UK, following kind of the change in the musical climate as the influence of Trojan Records diminished from its heyday in the late 60s, early 1970s, and a new wave of younger groups came up expressing a roots and culture point of view, what was going on around them, what was pertinent to their situation as Jamaicans, as West Indians growing up in the UK, and the different influences that they were exposed to and the different pressures that they were faced with. Capital Letters I'm going to be looking at first. Fairly compact discography. Thought it was a good starting point. Capital Letters was formed in the early 1970s in Wolverhampton, UK. All members either having been born in Jamaica or their parents had been born there. Some of them had met in the Boy Scouts as kids, formed a band, playing cover versions, doing lots of practicing. The group would have periodic lineup shifts over the years. Always a fairly big group, fluctuating from 6 members and up. But in 1976, they got one of their first breaks when they won a talent competition, the prize of which was a recording session. Around this time, they had one of their first personnel changes, as some of the founding members left and were replaced by younger members to carry the group forward, onward and upward. The prize was a recording session for which they recorded a cover of an Errol Dunkley song called You'll Need Me, which was released on the Black Lion label, I believe, in the UK as a 45. One copy on Discogs right now, north of $100 if you want to get that record. I don't have it myself, but it was the first Capital Letters record to appear. Following this, the group got really serious about their craft, practicing every day, writing their own songs. Finally, in 1978, they were practicing in a session, smoking some of their ganja, and decided to record a song, hit tape. That song was called Smoking My Ganja, talking about police harassment of herb smokers. Them want to charge I for smoking I ganja. Took the tape around to various record labels. They kind of wouldn't touch it. It was a bit too raw for them. Trojan Records itself turned them down. Finally, they went to a fledgling London-based label called Greensleeves, which had just started up not long before. Chris Cracknell, A&R man for the label, loved the song, was enthusiastic about the group, and signed them. And that song, Smoking My Ganja, was released as a 12-inch on Greensleeves. This is a reissue from a few years ago. Greensleeves 12-inch was a very early release on the label. Gred 5, Smoking My Ganja, the iconic Greensleeves label based out of Shepherd's Bush, London at that time. And a very early signing of a local UK act by the label, backed with Natty Walk. Greensleeves label had just started up, was just gearing up, putting out some local UK reggae favorites, as well as that licensed by from Jamaica. The song Smoking My Ganja was a big hit on the sound systems, came to the attention of radio DJ John Peel, who brought the group in to do one of his sessions. I think they recorded 3 songs for him in one of his sessions. He promoted the song. This caused increased awareness of the group. They were touring all over the UK. Finally, in 1979, they recorded their debut album, again for Greensleeves. That album was called Headline News by capital letters. Again, a very early LP release on Greensleeves. I'll show you the label here. This is original. Grell 7, so only the 7th LP released on Greensleeves. The classic Greensleeves label, based out of London. This focused on the group's heavy roots sound, as Bob Marley and the Wailers, of course, the influence for many of these groups, but expressing lyrically their perspective as young West Indians growing up in the environment of the UK, facing racism, facing class issues, police harassment. A song on here called Unemployed. Day after day spent walking the town. I play the fool, then I act the clown. But is it my fault that I'm unqualified, clear from JA in Britain to reside as an unemployed member of the public? Look who's unemployed now. It's not that I'm afraid of work, you see. I'll build computers, even chop down trees. My parents tell me that I'm no damn good. They're better off with a man of wood. So help me, brothers, now help me if you can. 'Cause after all, I'm just a human man, not just an unemployed member of the public. Different lyrics, more thoughtful maybe than you would get coming out of reggae created in Jamaica. That's one of the clear differences between UK reggae and Jamaican reggae, as well as in the UK you find these self-contained bands playing all their own instruments, which is the norm in UK reggae and which capital letters exemplifies. Excellent album, includes of course Smoking My Ganja, Daddy Was No Murderer, dealing with police harassment of young black men, and especially West Indians. Also commenting on literally headline news, President Amin, commenting on Idi Amin out of Africa, and just issues of the day. Classic album from capital letters. Following this, they would continue touring, toured through Europe in many different countries. All went well until they hit Finland, when apparently they had a bad kind of hallucinogenic experience with drunken audience members. They saw some strange things, and this experience shook and rattled the group. They came back, took a break for a while, came back in 1982 and recorded the follow-up LP Vineyard, again with a slightly different, slightly altered lineup. Recorded this LP in 1982. This was only ever given a very limited release in Europe through the Bellafon label, which was affiliated with Greensleeves. The album was partly recorded in Germany. The album was called Vineyard, again playing up the Herbman image on the cover there. Slightly different lineup, also slightly different sound, still that heavy capital letters root sound, but replacing the male background harmonies of the first album, replacing the female harmonies with male harmonies, somewhat of a Congos sound on this album, as well as, this is a reissue appearing on Greensleeves from a couple of years ago, as well as stronger, more mature songwriting, and again, very topical songs, Murdering Style, No Jobs, again commenting on issues surrounding them, Phooey Parents, kind of addressing the older generation and some of the conflicts that they would run into. They say there's an Old and a New Testament, there's an old and a new generation, and some of the conflicts between generations that would go on. Excellent album, was very hard to get for a long time, reissued just a couple of years ago through Greensleeves, which is now owned by VP Records, VP Reggae out of the US. Was also issued in an expanded form on CD, which includes the Peel sessions and some other tracks. The Headline News album was also recently reissued on CD with an expanded track list. I might try and get that one. Following that, not much was heard from Capital Letters, and we kind of have the advantage in the 2000s of all these reissue labels putting music out that maybe you weren't able to be exposed to at the time. A Roots fan in the 1980s might have only heard that first album, whatever singles you could get. There was a 1984 song EP issued called Bread and Water, which was kind of a nod to the ska sounds of the two-tone groups which were coming up in Britain at that time. But in 1985, there were some sessions from Capital Letters which were never released. Finally, in 2014, the Reggae Archive label put it out as Reality, Capital Letters. This would be kind of a swan song for the original or the then current lineup of the group, appearing on Reggae Archive labels, 2014 issue. Actually, I guess the first pressing, not a reissue, because it was never released. Some of the tapes were apparently unusable. Some had to be mixed. They were in an unmixed form. So this is somewhat of a mixed bag, filled out with some dub mixes, but kind of the last hurrah for the original or the most well-known lineup of Capital Letters. Following this, there would be a schism in the group with bass player GB, Junior Brown, leaving. Apparently the other members have continued. The band split up for many years. In the 2000s, both factions have kind of regrouped. Junior Brown would put out a new album called Wolverhampton in 2015, very excellent album with Junior Brown's lineup of Capital Letters, but he is the only original member of Capital Letters in the current lineup of the group. And this appeared on Sugar Shack Records in 2015, a sub-label of Reggae Archive Records devoted to putting out new music. There was also a dub version of that came out, Wolverhampton, 2015 release, very nice album. A few years later, I think 2018, Junior Brown's version of Capital Letters put out another album. I do not have that one as yet. And apparently the other members, the other long-running members of Capital Letters also have their own group, but I have not heard of any music emanating from them, though apparently they have been working on new material, but at odds, unfortunately, with Junior Brown over use of the Capital Letters name. So that is the first installment of my look at UK roots, the first wave of UK roots bands as they spread across the UK, bringing the music of Jamaica to Britain, to a new generation of UK West Indians, and translating that sound, that heavy roots reggae sound, into something more relevant to their own situation, their own environment growing up in England in the 1970s and early 1980s. Hope you enjoyed, guys. Cheers.